Hello, everyone, and welcome to Swapping Stories. For the foreseeable future, I will be your host, Carlos Pittman. I am a communications organizer with the Southwest Organizing Project. And today we have two guests here. I'm going to go ahead and let them introduce themselves.
I'm Dante Williams, actually. I work with housing. I am a diverse developer fellow, and I started that this year in January.
Hey everyone, I'm Jasmine. I am an organizer at SWOP, and my focus is health and public health.
Gotcha. I appreciate you two joining us today. In the last episode, our organizers talked about the power of one-to-ones and how they help build relationships in the work that they're doing. So I wanted to actually pose that question to you guys first of how one-to-ones really shaped your organizing experience.
So I think more than a one-to-one, it's just the work of building relationships. One-to-one is a tool, but the work of having someone know how to connect to you and see you and create space for your experience and your voice to be valid, I think was very transformational for me as a young person, because that's when I got connected to SWOP in high school. So it deeply impacted my life, and I work to continue to have that same kind of impact in what I do today, of just being sure that I'm being deeply relational and listening and learning to what folks are experiencing, and then trying to turn that work into something actionable or reflective of what they need.
Yeah, I would say for me, at first I did not like one-to-ones. I'm gonna be honest. I was like, I gotta tell my story. I gotta talk about myself. But I found it helpful throughout my time just organizing, because you meet a lot of people, right? And just because you meet people, you don't know people. So it's like me now knowing somebody and understanding their story, I got a better way of like operating, of even how I speak to them throughout the day, or just how I come to them and things. So it helped me a lot with just knowing people and knowing people's story. So I'm able to communicate with them in a way that they will like, or that I know is best, you know?
Gotcha. I'll say, as a newer organizer, I kind of echo that feeling of starting out doing one-to-ones kind of gave me a little bit of anxiety.
Yeah.
There was a lot of time that I was worried about, was I saying the right thing? Was I really being reflective of the story, of my own story, and was I being accountable to the story that they were sharing back to me, and what it really meant to be accountable to someone else's story when you're in those spaces having those conversations. Now, Jasmine, you mentioned something very interesting about having gotten your start at SWOP as a youth. Would you like to explain a little bit about that?
Yes. So I was a student at Gage Park High School, and when I was maybe 16 or 17, SWOP organizers would show up to classrooms and just kind of talk about what they did, but also offer spaces for young people to be at and just be heard. And that kind of was what hooked me, was to see and hear an adult say that there was a space for me, like unique to me, and it wasn't a busy space, which I had like expressed issue with at school, of like busy work and just doing what I was told to. So I think it was that introduction to them, and then to their organizing and organizing in general, that that really changed like my path. But so I got started in high school, like a lot of folks here in this table, but also at SWOP got started just being connected through high school.
Got you. I understand that your story is actually pretty similar, Dante, where someone saw something in you as a teen, and that's how you end up in the organizing space.
Yeah, it was Joel. You know, we able to name drop, right?
Yeah.
Okay. No, it was Joel. And it's funny because I was just thinking about this recently. Like, man, I wouldn't know what I'd be doing if I haven't met Joel. I didn't see myself doing organizing work. I thought I was going to be on Disney Channel or a police officer or something. Yeah, I always had like I want to be a police officer back when I was younger. But then just getting into this work when I went to Gage Park High School, that transition from Tilden to Gage Park, you know, I thought voice was a singing program. So when they asked me if I wanted to join, I said no, I don't want to sing. But then they told me what it was. I was like, why not, right? My freshman year in Tilden, we did this thing called Young Men Building Legacy. So it was a program full of boys becoming men, and it was mostly for the young men that was like affiliated, right? I wasn't affiliated with it, right? I would just hang around them, and you know, it was a good program, and that's why I was like, when it was time to join Voice, when Joel and them asked me to do it, I was like, why not, right? So yeah, it was that also them telling me what the work was and how can I help. That's what I was eager to like, just all right, let's do it. So yeah, it was, yeah.
Oh, so it's pretty cool. Considering where you've come since then, it's to my understanding that before you were a diverse
developer
fellow, you actually did a lot in youth organizing. What was that like? What was it like trying to reach the youth, and how do you feel as though that has like set your path in what you're doing now?
I want to give a big shout out to Jazz too, and the reason I say that is because Jazz was the one who reached out to me, and just when I graduated high school, going into Team Reach was I wouldn't say it was a huge transition, but it was like something that, you know, running a class a class of, was it like 12 to 15 young people?
20.
Tough work. You have to be mentally prepared for work like that, because you know you're dealing with young people who is going through the same thing you've been through, you know. So yeah, and just I was like loving the work, right? It was at one point I was also slacking. Big shouts out to Jazz again. She just set me down and told me, like, I can't remember the exact words, but I know what it was around. I was always late, and just like late, and I would be late, not on purpose, but I'd be like, I'm gonna stop at a store. They young people, they understand. But Jazz was like, these young people know, you know, they who's consistent, who's not consistent. So even then, that pushed me more. And I think after that, I don't think I showed up late no more. And I actually wanted to do it. So yeah, you know, doing youth work. I did not see myself doing youth work, but I love it. I love it. And as a diverse developer fellow who's working on housing now, I sometimes just think about, like, you know, the young people, you know, like, man, I miss that work. Now, how can I bring young people into this work of just this housing work? How can I now just teach the things that I know, like building credit. It's something that in the Black community that they don't talk to us about. My dad having us like, yo, you can get you your own apartment, this and that, you know, but nobody really says you can build your credit. You can save this and save that, and you could buy you some property and you pass it down to your kids. Nobody's really doing that in the Black community. So it's like, now I want to be able to do that for these young Black and brown young people. So I'm trying to find ways to just implement the young people into the housing work.
Jose, thank you for sharing that. It's actually funny that you mentioned the whole credit thing. I am 29 years old, and I think I only started to worry about credit 2 or 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That is what I feel like was a lot of missed opportunity. And there is probably so many more young people out there, or people younger than me, who can get the jump on it, who need that talk. Because as far as I knew, I remember I went to Gage Park High School as well. had a teacher. We had like one session where they basically put the fear of God into you about credit cards. Like, don't get credit cards, but you need credit cards.
Yeah.
If you get credit cards, pay them off immediately.
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? I'm just not going to touch it.
Yeah.
I'm just not going to touch it. And to this day, where I've started, I have a car, I've started thinking about housing, about, my future. I'm like, my credit is like non-existent. And if not for the luck of having my student loans wiped, I would be in an even worse position, credit wise. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of knowledge that I feel like our communities are being what feels kind of like gate kept out of, or not informed of, to be able to take care of themselves in the future. And Jasmine, you work in healthcare. Do you feel like that's had any? What has been your connection to youth? Considering you used to do youth work as well.
Yeah. So just so my mom always did the same thing with the credit cards. Like, don't get them, don't touch them. So I got my first credit card like 2 years ago, and I already closed it. Like I'm still intimidated by credit, so you're not alone in the struggle. But so I mean, the transition from youth organizing to public health and healthcare organizing, there's a gap. There's for sure a gap. I think I'm grateful that I have skills that I brought over from one to the other, and I think it's made me effective in leading a team, because I have a pretty big team of people that I work with and work for. So I'm grateful for the experience, kind of almost what Dante was saying, of like being in a space where people are holding you accountable and you're seeing the efforts of your work. I think, at least for me, grow the most or be the most apparent through the ways that your team feels, right? And the work that your team does. When they're confident and they're feeling strong, you see the best outcomes. So I think I can see that as a commonality, but healthcare is very removed from young people in the sense that young people are centered in the conversation about healthcare. They're looked at more as like a gear, almost. Like, honestly, when I think about healthcare and I think about the whole system of healthcare, no human being is centered in that work. That's all about policy, regulation, insurance, systems. So it's not a people first industry. And from my perspective, I'm not a healthcare professional. I'm a healthcare organizer, which is very different. But I definitely see a gap between the ways in which people, young people, but their parents and families can inform how people get access to healthcare and the current system that exists that we use to get access to healthcare. There's a huge disparity, and it's dysfunctional.
Oh, so that's pretty deep.
Thank you.
You made the distinction between being a health service worker and a health or a public health organizer. What would you say is the main distinction? What draws what separates the two in your eyes?
Yeah, I think it's that same perspective of my vision is the ways in which people, human beings with families, with jobs, with human condition, how they get access to healthcare. My perspective is not how do I put this system, how do I get people in this system, right? And I think the difference is I'm thinking about people through the perspective of their language, right? Whether English is their first language or not, because the healthcare system, as we experience it, is English first, right? We'll be lucky if we get some stuff translated into Spanish, so or any other language for that matter. So my perspective is that healthcare has to be made and brought to people where they are, right? Being able to have a more comprehensive system that doesn't require you to be on the phone all day. The work that I do is to help manage and coordinate a cohort of about 20 different people whose job is to help community members navigate the system of healthcare, mental health, right, physical health, but also how do I get access to public benefits like Medicaid and Medicare, Link, all like their job. They are trained, have received hundreds of hours of training on how to then go out in community and connect people to that, because it's so not comprehensive that it's very difficult for any one random person to just know how to get in there and get it quickly and make sure that it actually meets their needs and the needs of their family. So there's a huge gap between being a healthcare like service provider and an organizer. And I, honestly, I'm just making up the term healthcare organizer because that's just what I do. But mine's is all about how do I connect the people to the institutions, to the services that they need to be healthy, because my vision is about human beings, not about systems.
Gotcha. So what role do you guys believe youth and grassroots organizing have in the work that you do? And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start with Dante here.
I knew. One more time. Give me that question one more time.
Gotcha. What role do you believe that youth and grassroots organizing help play in being in housing, in your case, and in healthcare, in your case?
That's kind of a tough question. For me, considering the fact that, we haven't worked a lot with young people, but I would say me being in the role that I am, the role that that young people play with grassroots organizing, right, is just with myself as I was a young person, I was just a kid in high school. I didn't know anything about housing then, but just being brought up and taught all of this so that I'm able to lead right now in this role that I'm in. So that's what I would say. I think that's important. And I thought in order to work in housing work, you had to be like this person with a bachelor's degree and a PhD or all of that good old stuff. But no, man, you just really need to know and understand and be taught. So I would say, as a young person, just growing up, I didn't know about housing work until I got into the organizing work. And even then, when we was in high school, we had this little group. We created like groups inside of Voice, and one of them was Youth Saving Homes. So us as young people, we was going around talking to homeowners and stuff, and trying to get them to just check up on their houses, resources that they might have to get involved with their houses. So I started young. I didn't see myself doing this work, but I would say that's what it is, just teaching this stuff to young people, and young people who actually care for this kind of work is now leading this kind of work. So.
Gotcha. Thank you.
That answered?
No, yeah.
That was a great answer.
Yeah, I was. And I guess I'm posing the same question to you. Do you feel as though there's a role that youth and organizing can play in, I guess, fixing or expanding what kind of feels like a broken system in terms of healthcare?
I mean, what Dante said, I think, is very poignant. The fact that there are young people who are interested in organizing or being involved, and that when you equip those young people with the skills and the knowledge and the ability to get involved, that does transform the landscape, right, of healthcare, at least hyper locally. So I think that's a great answer. My first thought was, there's so little space in healthcare for the discretion of the recipients of healthcare, right? Like, I know a lot of folks in our community don't even want to go to a doctor because they feel so dismissed. There's so little information and reciprocity between them and the healthcare system. They don't know what they're getting. And oftentimes they don't know why, right? It's just like somebody with more power or a degree is telling you to do this thing, but they're not walking you through what the reason is. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for young people's voices and experiences to be lifted in a space like healthcare, and healthcare is huge, but I could think the first space is in behavioral healthcare, right, which is all about helping young people process themselves and their lives and their experience. So creating more spaces where that's reflective of who young people are and what they want, right, I think could be really impactful. But it's democratizing these systems like housing, which is so confusing, right? What does it mean to be a homeowner? And what does the responsibility mean today and 10 years into the future? There's just so little comprehensive information. And one day you're just supposed to know this stuff. One day I'm just supposed to know how to use my healthcare benefits. Or if I'm not eligible for benefits, I'm just supposed to know how to get into a system that I don't even qualify for to get essential care, right? So I think there is a lot of opportunity for organizing around changing the way that we bill for healthcare, changing the way that people get access to healthcare and who is eligible for healthcare, right? We know like those income limits, both for housing and for healthcare, are not actually reflective of what people are going through, right? And what does income mean, right? Like those questions are so, I just feel like people ask them, but we don't have a comprehensive answer, and we don't have answers that actually reflect what real people every day who go to work, take care of their kids, pay their taxes, that whole thing, like, you know, there's not enough of what they need reflected in these essential components of our lives. People need to have a safe place to live, and people need to have access to healthcare. It's not a want. It's not asking too much to have those things that are good quality. So there is infinite space and opportunity for young people to organize in those, you know, areas. I just think we're kind of in a space at this moment where we can't ask for that permission anymore. We have to start breaking down barriers and not asking for permission anymore, showing up in spaces where we're not formally invited to start to have our voices heard, because otherwise it will be business as usual.
I would say that was so eloquently spoken that I feel like you kind of answered the next question I was gonna ask. So I would say, but I would say I'm gonna pose it just in case there's something different that you would like to add. So my last question would be, what's one area in the healthcare and housing spaces that you feel like could use the most reform?
I think what really frustrates me most, right, and you know, because we're in the area right now, we're focused on affordable housing, right? When you hear that word affordable, right, you want it to be affordable, right? That word there, you know, it's, you know, somebody here, especially somebody from our community, affordable, for sure, that's all me. So what frustrates me the most is that if this is affordable, then it should look affordable, you know, prices should look affordable. And I think what people think, and this is not just within the community, I think this is all around probably the city of Chicago, is just like, who is this affordable to, you know? And it frustrates me that what people consider affordable, like I would not consider that affordable. We're living from paycheck to paycheck, right? So it's bad enough you know you got the electric bill, the gas bill, you got all these bills So when I hear affordable, I would want this to be affordable, right? And that I think when most people thinking of like affordable, they're not thinking of what you already have to pay for, car note, all of these bills that you got. I don't think people are thinking of, okay, this is affordable due to all of these other circumstances. So I think that's what frustrates me the most is just like that word affordable is being tossed around so much, but that's not what properties are looking like. That's not what units where people can move into is looking like. It's when I hear prices after somebody saying affordable, I'd be like, you think that's affordable? For somebody in this community or next to this community? Because, we're surrounded around communities that if you go to them and say this is affordable and you give them a price and they can be like, yeah, absolutely not. So I think that's what frustrates me the most, that word affordable just it ain't being, it's not being, people are not living up to that word affordable, so.
Got you.
And also the way, another thing is like a way that, having connections. Like if it frustrates me when you're stuck between connecting with the people and like being like having like a business partner, right? Like who do you put first? I think it frustrates me when the people are not being put first, and more of like them, working as a business. I'm trying to find the way to say it, but like even it's all throughout Chicago, and all of these communities that we serve, Black and brown communities, where you have to choose between the people and this business, but not a lot of people really choose the people. As they talk like this, and when you hear the way that they go about things, and like, it's just like it's that's not really for the people when it comes to like housing. Especially in housing, you have to, if you're gonna be for the people, you got to be for the people, especially in that, because like that is the biggest thing right now, and not just in Chicago, but that's the biggest thing in the whole entire country right now is affordable housing. And then when you just look at numbers and stuff and see who's affected by this affordable housing, it's mostly Black and brown people. And I just recently went to and I'm gonna wrap it up. I recently went to a forum, and it was a housing forum and Navy Pier, and just hearing the amount of stuff that's happening with this affordable housing, it kind of like really set me off a little bit, and it really frustrated me. And when you hear, it's just a lot of being on low income and Section 8 and how those are being snatched away, or talking about it. It's like, man, these are really affecting Black and brown people. So it's just like affordable housing and that business before the people is frustrating.
Yeah, I think it's a question of whose definition of affordability is it? Is it the people's definition or an institution, right? Because you're thinking about AMI, right?
Yeah.
That's not defined by us.
Yeah.
That's defined by data and policymakers, right? So that's totally outside the hands of the people who then have to be accountable to what affordable means, right? Yeah. Affordable based on their definition is not the same definition that I'm working off when I think, oh, this is affordable housing. Yeah. So I really do think it's an issue of who are we thinking of when we're talking about these issues? Is it the issue of healthcare from the perspective of healthcare professionals and healthcare institutions, or is it the issue of healthcare from people? And same with housing, right? Is it people or is it businesses? Is it institutions and industries? So, but I think the silver lining for me when I think about this is I always bring it back to when I was a young person in high school. It was just me and my mom, and we lived in this neighborhood, and I don't know how she figured it out, but we never went without for real, right? Like we always were okay. But I know she struggled through that. You know, I know it was extremely hard for a single mom to maintain her household and still live a life that she wants, right, of dignity and choice. So I think about my work. If there is a family, if there's one mom, right, I'm thinking about my mom, this young black woman by herself, just me and her. If there's one person like that in this neighborhood who can have just a day of peace because something that we've done has made her life better, that's my North Star all the time. If this made my mom's life better, then I will do it. But if it really doesn't impact those kinds of families, just from my perspective, I'd rather do something more impactful, you know? So I think the work of organizing is kind of that silver lining, because I know these are huge systems that are not designed to be understood and designed to be difficult to change. But our work, our being in between the people and the partners and the businesses and the institutions and the whatevers, if it means that we can afford one family for just a little while, a little bit more peace, that's what makes this work worthwhile for me, right? Because I know that would have made Mia's life a little bit easier, right? So as tough and rough as it sounds from both of our perspectives, and we deal with a lot all the time, and we talk to each other about it all the time, I think we stay in it because we know that there are moments where this organizing work, the skills that we've developed, the relationships that we've built, have had an impact and have the ability to continue to impact people in a positive way.
Yeah, and it's crazy because just hearing, you know, that point, it's like, man, healthcare and housing go hand in hand. Man, you don't got nothing affordable. That really messes with your health. And it was a lot more to it. I was just thinking so much like, yo, healthcare and housing are like really, it's tied into each other somehow. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, and that's one of the reasons I wanted both of you on at the same time. I believe there are two issue areas that affect our community so deeply, and at the same time, you can't have good health without having, you know, stable housing, good education, good jobs. Everything falls under this health umbrella, and I'm just glad that you guys were able to come in here and share your perspective on the things that you've seen as organizers in these spaces. So thank you both, Dante and Jasmine, for joining us today.
Thank you.
And join us again once we're swapping stories. Thank you.
Appreciate you.
yeah, thank you.